Hello, and welcome to part 7. I'm Jenna LaMere, and I'm reading Elyse Myers's new book. That's a great question. I'd love to tell you. Um, if this is the first one that you happen to be seeing, know that this is my reaction to the book, my commentary on the book as I'm reading. It is not going to be read in its entirety, and I recommend that you buy the book or buy the audio to hear it by Elyse in her own voice. So this is not to replace reading it on your own. It's more if you want a buddy to be in on it with you. And for me, I need to read out loud in order for me to understand things. It helps me. And so I just figured I'd record myself doing it. And if anyone else gets something out of it, that's only a plus. So this one is entitled Two Truths and a Lie. And we have gone, this one, there's segments. There was California, we went to Paris, and now the window back to California. And so that, I hate these so much. I hate them. So I don't have to have them. This is what it looks like underneath all that. How cool. Okay. Two truths and a lie. Number 1. The sky is blue sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. Every once in a while, the sky transforms itself into a soft sheet of red and orange and pink and purple just before the sun kisses the horizon and says good night until tomorrow. Sometimes the sky becomes gray as it opens itself up and rains on the earth below it, and sometimes the sky turns into a threatening shade of green before tornado sirens begin to ring, creating a slight panic, even though maybe you've been living in a place that has tornado sirens long enough to know everything is probably fine, unless it isn't fine, in which case you'll be worried. The perfect amount. Not that worrying, the perfect amount, and I love that she has the perfect amount in capitals, or like the T, the P, and the A are all capitalized. Not that worrying the perfect amount can do anything to help your situation regarding the tornado, but at least you will be panicking accordingly. But then again, it's probably nothing, and you're more worried than you need to be. Anyway, the sky is blue sometimes. Number 2. A boy from my past invited me to meet him at the beach one night and then asked if I was still a virgin no less than 5 minutes after we hugged and said, "Hello, great to see you." I refused to answer his question because even though I could tell from the way he asked it that my answer would be the answer he was looking for, my answer was absolutely none of his business. I thought he was going to tell me he liked me way back when, those are also capitalized, during the 30-minute drive to the beach. I even thought, maybe this is a date? It has all the technical makings of a date, so it wouldn't be crazy to assume that this might be a date. Apparently, he had some virginity business to attend to first. Virginity business also is capitalized. These are so great. Or at least the first letters of it. "Why does it matter?" I said as I stepped from one rock to another, trying my best to avoid landing in the puddles that pooled in the grooves of the large rocks along the cliff where he asked me to meet him. The car I drove to the beach wasn't mine, and I would have rather not needed to explain to my mom why the mat under the driver's seat was covered in beach mud, mostly because she didn't know that she lent me her car in the first place. She didn't know. Because I left after she fell asleep. Oh, goodness. Isn't this funny how many synchronicities are? I made a little special trip to the beach without my mom knowing also. So we'll see if that needs to come up after this. This was a coincidence, of course. I didn't plan to leave after she fell asleep. Just so I could take the keys out of her purse and reverse her car out of the driveway with the headlights strategically turned off so that she wouldn't wake up and find out that I'd left, just so I could return her keys back to her purse before she woke up, with just enough time for me to pretend I was still asleep like I'd had been all night. A mere coincidence that my borrowing of her car worked out this way. "It matters because it matters," he said, so much more confidently than he had any right to sound. He began telling me why my virginity, or possible lack thereof, mattered to him, why it mattered to a boy from my past. I didn't even know well enough anymore to be able to discern if this was a date or not. He told me why it mattered to him and also to every boy and boy man and guyish guy man boy on the planet, and because of this, why it should matter to me. Women are like roses full of petals, he started. I winced at the comparison and wondered who gave him this idea and exactly how many times he had recited it to roses just like me at the beach at night while standing on rocks at the edge of a cliff. I felt my shoe land in a puddle, and my sock began to soak up as much seawater as it could hold, and then I felt it draw in a little more water after that. I would have taken my shoes off when I arrived at the beach, but I assumed we would walk down the staircase and onto the sand before the subject of my virginity was broached. I guess not. Actually, I didn't think my virginity would be a topic of conversation at all tonight, or any other night after tonight that I might, but definitely won't, see him again. He spoke with so much confidence that it made me question whether I deserved to be offended by this conversation. Oh, that water looks cold. That sucks. It's very cold. Oh, that water looks cold. That sucks. I guess was him saying that. It's very cold. My sock's all wet. Think of yourself as a beautiful rose, and when you are still a virgin, you still have all your petals. I don't want to think of myself as a rose, Terrence. I especially don't want you thinking of me as a rose either. And you still have all your petals, okay? And with all your petals still in place, you are so beautiful, exactly as you're meant to be, full of petals, untouched. Do you understand what I'm saying? I do. Please stop calling me a rose. And every time you give your body to someone, it is like they're plucking one of your petals off and dropping it on the ground. This is so weird. They drop it on the ground. Your rose becomes smaller and smaller and loses all its beauty. And then on your wedding night, I slipped once more and my dry foot landed in another puddle. Judging by how wet the bottom of my pants leg was, this puddle was much deeper than the first. I wonder if there were any small crabs or tiny sea creatures living in that puddle. I wonder if my foot had landed on top of them. Why aren't there any streetlights lining this road? We're standing next to one of the only staircases that leads down to the beach, so I felt like there should be at least one streetlight. The idea that I might have just killed a small crab makes me want to cry, and my socks are emitting a squishing sound that makes every single one of my steps sound like a practical joke. And I'm so cold. I get it. And I'm so cold that I've started to shiver. You should take your shoes off if you're going to keep stepping in the water like that. You look cold. He slinks his arms out of his tan members-only jacket, which looks like it was taken straight off of a mannequin at a thrift store. Not the kind of thrift store that's actually thrifty, but the kind of thrift store that doesn't have any price tags because the people who can afford to shop there don't need to bother themselves with price tags. Oh, once his jacket is all the way off, I think he's going to hand it to me to help me warm up. But he doesn't hand it to me. Instead, he ties it around his waist. Oh my God. I'm fine, thanks. I think it's weird you feel so invested in my virginity, seeing as though it has nothing to do with you, what with all the rose petal collecting and all that. You really do look cold. I said I'm fine. Are you sure? Yes, I'm fine. I am the definition of not fine. I want to take my wet shoes and socks off very much, but I'd rather wait until I get closer to my car. The last thing I need is to step on some random piece of glass or broken seashell, and as a result, be forced to hear any more about my rose petals as I tend to a gash on the heel of my foot. And then on your wedding night, he continues without any hesitation, when you finally give your rose to your husband forever, please stop. I'm begging you to stop. If you don't stop, I'm just going to have to call the police. I'm not going to call the police, but Terrence doesn't need to know that. I stole my mom's car to get here, and the idea of emergency response vehicles makes me nervous. When I was 6 years old, I called 911 because I convinced a few kids that we could add 911 into a phone number, and it wouldn't count as dialing 911. But one single call placed to 714-911 2345, landed me and my babysitter on the porch of my mom's boyfriend's house, explaining to the police that the call was my fault and I'd felt brave while waiting next to my mom's boyfriend's children for our shrinky dinks to finish cooking in my easy baking oven. At this point, I could be having an actual emergency, and I'd reasoned with myself that it's not worth calling 911 because I don't want to bother them, and it could be so much worse. Why waste their time? I hold up my hand like a crossing guard outside of an elementary school as I shake my leg to remove as much excess ocean water from my shoes as I can. Don't you want to give your husband a rose with all its petals when you get married? I look at the edge of the cliff and imagine walking right off of it. That would get me away from this conversation much faster than walking to my car. But then my mom might never get her car back, and she loves this car. Who says I want to marry a man or that I want to get married at all? And who says I care what anyone besides myself thinks about my rose and all my rose petals? And what about your rose? Let's talk about your rose for a second. Elyse, it doesn't really work that way. Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't. I cut him off, hoping that this will stop him from teaching me any more about this magical metaphor for sex and how he feels so strongly about that for the sake of all men everywhere, he has taken it upon himself to teach me all about this evening. Part of me wants to tell him that I would have sex with him in a car tonight, if only he would have asked, not because I actually would have had schmecked with him in the car tonight, but because I would have loved to seen how many seconds it took for him to teach me all the loopholes that exist in this magical metaphor, depending on who's watching. I also don't want him to leave this cliff with the pleasure of hearing those words come out of my mouth, especially when I don't mean them. I'm still a virgin after all, petals fully intact. I hate that I know this metaphor now. I finally make it across the rocks and back onto the grass where he's standing. I bend down and wring out the bottom of my pants, then untie my shoelaces. I wish I would have planned ahead and put a towel in the trunk or not have driven to the beach at all. Are you leaving? Yes. Can I walk you to your car? If I say no, are you just going to walk me to my car anyway? Probably. It's really dark out here. All right, let's go then. It takes all of 30 seconds for us to reach my car. Sometime between when I unlock the car doors and open the driver's side door, he shouts loudly, "Let's play a game." The game where we each tell each other something we've never told anyone before. His smile makes him look like a serial killer. No thanks, good night. I pop the trunk of my mom's car and I throw my shoes and very wet socks into the back before closing it way too loudly. Do you know what a fleshlight is? I pretend that I didn't hear his absurd question and climb into the car. I cannot physically handle being here any longer, or I'm going to say something I regret. At best, I heard this question wrong. At worst, I heard this question right, and tonight is about to take its second turn into conversational territory I'm beyond uncomfortable exploring with him. Goodbye, Terrence. That's my confession, he says. I have a fleshlight. Do you know what a fleshlight is? Then she has the drawing of it censored. Oh my god, that's hilarious with the little pixelation. That's a freaking adorable. On the little picture it says here, I am silent and completely still for many seconds. And then laughter explodes out of my mouth as he watches me lose the last of my self-control. He looks back at me as if what he just confessed isn't the most absurd fun fact that he could shout at me after he just spent the entire evening telling me how scared or sacred and important my sexual purity is to him and all mankind. For him to punctuate his unrelenting and unsolicited advice regarding my own virtue with a confession about owning a pretend flashlight that he can discreetly masturbate into makes more sense than I'd ever wanted it to. It makes more sense than it ever should. Oh yes, I managed to say through tears and laughter that I refuse to disguise any longer this evening. Yes, I know what a fleshlight is. And just to confirm, you did say fleshlight, right? You didn't say flashlight. You said flesh. F-L-E-S-H light, fleshlight. I spell his confession out as plainly and evenly as I can before I say anything more. Yes, that's right. Okay, your turn. Tell me something you've never told anyone before. I take multiple deep breaths and steady myself before speaking again. Okay. Something I've never told anyone. I do my best to take my time and look as though I'm deep in thought. I hum thinking noises in the back of my throat and stare purposely at my hands as they trace the stitching on the steering wheel in front of me. I stare off into the distance, then turn to Terrence. Okay, I've got one. Terrence rubs his hands together as if the memory of whatever I'm about to confess is going to taste delicious as he kills me on this dark oceanside cliff. And then he eats my body to get rid of the evidence. Something I've never told anyone. I blink and try not to smile. I don't ever want to hear about your fleshlight ever again, and I hope that if you ever think of me while using it, you immediately go soft and lose your ability to finish. And I hope that you tell your future wife all about your fleshlight immediately after you ask her if she's a virgin. So, there you go. A bunch of things I've never told anyone before. Good night. I finally force the car door closed and drive away as fast as I possibly can. I have not seen or heard from Terrence since, but I sincerely hope Terrence and his fleshlight and his wife are very happy together. Yes, Terrence is married. Congrats, Terrence. And finally, number 3. I guess those are 2 truths, and this is a lie. I don't know. Number 3, all the blood in my body was replaced with cold-pressed organic apple juice when I was 7 years old, and I never bothered to change it back. Okay, time to guess. Which one's the lie? Oh my gosh, that's so good. Yeah, I guess my only story of sneaking off to the beach was that I got beat up. And a beach here is like a little over an hour. And it was spring break, and I had lied to my mom and told her that I was staying the night or my mom was out of town. So my dad was in charge. I told him. That's probably why I tried to pull it off, is because my dad was so much more lenient. But anyway, I had already felt guilty for lying to my parents. So when I got there, I got totally beat up. And, it really, really impacted my life for a long time after that. Because it was spring break, and it was one of those where there's just like crowds and crowds of people all just partying out in the street. I mean, like thousands of people there. And then this girl just like grabs my hair and like pulls me back up and like said, I'm gonna kick your ass. You're just such a bitch. I'm like, why? Why is this happening? And so she did. She starts throwing punches at me, and I took the fetal and just got down, and she kicked me a couple times. And then I remember that there was like paramedics coming, but because it was like a madhouse, like riot going on, and there was other things happening here and there, they were like looking in my eyes and everything. And they're like, okay, do you want to press charges or whatever? And I'm like, no. I'm thinking, I don't even want my parents to know that I'm here. And so I said no, and then they were off to another big brawl that was happening. And then I just like got up and was so dissociated from that moment on. And then I had that was a very pivotal time in my life. This is nothing compared to her horrible, I mean, I'm just saying I know it's not in the same exact vein, but like when you're sneaking out to go to the beach, don't do it. Sneaking out to go to the beach doesn't end up well. You have shitty times usually if you have to sneak out for those kind of things. Anyway, that story goes on, and there's so much more to it, but that's what reminded me of sneaking off to the beach. I've also had amazing, wonderful times. I'm trying to think if I've sneaked off to the beach and it's been positive. I've had beach trips that were really fun, but not that were secret, I don't think. Anyway, all right. So the next chapter we will do probably tomorrow. I just felt like getting in one more of these today. So thank you again for watching, following along. Stay tuned.